everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today's technique is a variation of partial knitting, one of the techniques that I did I think a couple of weeks ago. I think it's 2 videos ago, I'm not entirely sure, but anyway, so that's the swatch that we will be working with today. It's actually quite an exciting one, and all we've got to do really is swap some yarns around and change the counts, and you sort of get like a half and half effect. So the yarns that I've used here are cotton, which is your 4-ply, 2 ends of viscose, my ever so favourite tape, and 2 ends of viscose again, the one that shrinks when you press it. I actually lost my words there. So I think, again, if you go ahead and change the yarns, change your number of rows, change where you swap the yarns as well, it will give you a completely different outcome. So I would definitely encourage you to play around and experiment a little bit. So I've gone ahead and casted on 40 needles and just knit a few rows on tension 5 using the 4-ply cotton. So we are going to start working in sets of 10, and we are going to be knitting 10 rows. Okay, so partial knitting rules, opposites obviously. So the 10 needles that we're going to work on near to the carriage, that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So these 10 here are the ones we're going to knit on, okay? Everything on the left-hand side of those 10 needles get pushed forward onto hold position. Now we're going to go ahead and do our 10. Right, so half that and we get 5, okay? So we're going to go ahead and push 5 needles slightly over to the back where the stitches lay just behind the latch. We're going to go ahead and knit 1, and the first 5 needles get pushed forward, so we're still working in sets of 10. And then we push the next 5 slightly over to the back, knit 1, and then the previous 5 come out. And then the next 5 slightly over to the back, knit 1, previous 5 come out. Okay, so now with my carriage is on the right hand side and we're left with about 15 needles. Okay, now to get that sort of half and half effect, what we're going to do is knit. So push all of these 15 needles slightly over to the back and knit across once. Okay, so we've not done any partial knitting on here. Okay, at this point we are going to go ahead and change our yarn over to the viscose, and we are going to repeat what we've just done but from left to right hand side, and we will still work on the 10 needles and we'll still knit 10 rows. Okay, so my tension is going to go down to 4. The nearest 10 are the one that we're going to be working on, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and everything else gets pushed forward. So I'm just going to add extra weights on there and go ahead. Next 5, push slightly over to the back, knit 1, and previous 5 come out. Next 5, and previous 5 come out. And previous ones come out. All right, okay, so we remain we've got 15 needles remaining, and we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. So push the 15 slightly over to the back, knit 1, and count, go back to normal knitting and go ahead and knit 1 more row. Okay, so what we're going to do now is do a transfer. Okay, so I'm going to be transferring the second needle out to the left and third needle out to the right, okay? So I would then be working with a layout of 1 working needle, 2 non-working needles, 1 working needles, and 2 that are not working. So 1 working, 2 in non-working position, 1 in working position, and 2 in non-working position. Okay, so essentially you'll be left with 3 stitches on each of the working needles. Okay, now at this point you can do whatever transfer you want. I've picked this one to work with. Now it's up to you. Little changes that you make on the design or on the swatch will obviously give you a completely different outcome. Right, so once you've done your transfer work, make sure that all of your empty needles are pushed all the way to the back of the bed to non-working position, okay? At this point, I'm going to go ahead and push all of my working needles forward. Now, it is a little bit tight because my tension is tight and I've got 3 stitches. So when I knit across, it may not knit fully, so I might have to manually do it, okay? I'm going to go ahead and knit okay, it's just 1 needle that I've got to manually knit. There we go. Right, okay, so at this point I'm going to go ahead and change my yarn to tape yarn. So the yarn I'm using is this one right here. It's the one that I've been using in my other videos as well. Okay, now because it's quite chunky, my tension is going to go up to 7. I'm going to go back to partial knitting, cams on to 1, and we are going to be working in sets of 2. Okay, so everything else gets pushed forward to hold position. 2. Okay, so I am going to be working with working in 6 rows. Now because it's only 2 needles, you push 1 slightly over to the back, knit 1, and then the first one comes forward. So we're working in sets of 2. And you continue doing so until you've got 5 remaining on the end. There. I'm going to push the 5 slightly over to the back, knit across once. Okay, now at this point what I'm going to do is push forward 1 of the empty needles from each set. Okay, so I'm picking the right hand side one. You can pick whichever. Just 1, push it back into working position. Cams go to 2. Okay, and again I am going to go ahead and change my yarn. Okay, so I am just going to change my colour and go back to the cotton, but you can pick whichever yarn you want to work with. So I've changed my yarn. My tension goes back down to 5. And I'm going to go ahead and knit across 1 row, okay? And then this time I'm going to go ahead and push all of the needles into working position and knit another row. So I'm going to repeat my partial knitting. So cams go back to 1, and this time I'm going to work on 4 needles, so sets of 4. Everything else gets pushed all the way forward. push 2 to the back and then 2 forward. And I'm working with 6 rows. So sets of 4 and 6 rows. So at this point you can stop at any point really. I think I'm going to work with 2 more sets and then stop there. Okay, so I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 needles remaining. I'm going to go ahead and push those 13 needles slightly over to the back, knit across once, and then I'm going to go back to normal knitting and finish the swatch off. So that's the outcome of what we've just done. So if you try and change the point where you stop and swap the yarns and, you know, change your counts on each of these, change the number of needles or sets that you work with, the outcome will always be different. So I would definitely encourage you to try out and experiment with lots of different things and make notes of it as well. So I really hope you enjoyed that as much as I actually enjoyed experimenting with the technique. If you do have any questions, if you'd like for me to cover anything else, please do leave it in the comments below or message me on Instagram and follow me and subscribe to me. I'll see you next week. Bye.